Let me speak to you as a clinician who has spent years watching how small daily habits quietly shape the brain, the body, and the arc of our health. After 60, the body is wiser, but also more sensitive. What helped you at 30 can harm you at 65 if it's done blindly, automatically, without listening. And that's exactly where many well-intentioned people go wrong every single morning. We've been told, almost hypnotically, that the first thing you must do when you wake up is drink a large glass of water. No questions asked, no context, no nuance. But health is never about extremes. It's about balance. And when we push the body without awareness, we create stress where we meant to create healing. The first mistake is forcing water into a body that hasn't fully awakened. As we age, kidney function, electrolyte balance, and blood pressure regulation change. Flooding the system immediately, especially with large amounts of cold water, can dilute sodium levels, trigger dizziness, worsen morning hypotension, and in some people increase the risk of falls. I've seen patients who thought they were doing something healthy end up lightheaded, shaky, and confused. The body after 60 needs gentleness before volume. The second mistake is ignoring what the brain is asking for. When you wake up, your nervous system is transitioning from rest to action. Cortisol naturally rises, blood vessels are adjusting. For some seniors, immediately drinking water can stimulate a strong vagal response, leading to nausea, palpitations, or weakness. This isn't willpower. This is physiology. Health means working with your brain, not overriding it with rules pulled from the internet. And the third mistake is mistaking hydration for nourishment. Water alone, especially first thing in the morning, does not support blood sugar stability. After 60, unstable blood sugar can mean fatigue, cravings, anxiety, and brain fog. I've watched people drink water, skip nourishment, and then wonder why they feel depleted by 9 a.m. The body needs signals of safety. Sometimes that means a few minutes of movement, warmth, or a small balanced intake before large amounts of fluid. Now hear me clearly. This is not about fear. It's about awareness. Water is essential, but timing, temperature, and quantity matter more as we age. Some people do best starting with a few sips, warm or room temperature, after sitting up and breathing. Others benefit from waiting until after light movement or a small meal. There is no single rule, only intelligent listening. Real health after 60 is not about chasing trends. It's about restoring balance in a world that constantly pushes excess. Excess stimulation, excess rules, excess certainty. The brain thrives when we reduce extremes and return to rhythm. So tomorrow morning, don't ask, what am I supposed to do? Ask, what does my body need right now? That question, asked consistently, protects your brain, your balance, and your independence far more than any viral health tip ever will. And remember, personalized guidance from your healthcare professional matters, especially if you have heart, kidney, or blood pressure conditions. Wisdom, not rigidity, is the true medicine. After the age of 60, the body no longer tolerates extremes the way it once did, and this is one of the most misunderstood truths in modern health culture. I see this daily in clinical settings, people who are disciplined, motivated, and deeply committed to doing the right thing, yet unknowingly creating stress inside their own physiology. What once felt energizing can quietly become destabilizing. The aging body is not weaker, but it is more precise in what it needs. And when we ignore that precision, even healthy habits can turn against us. Forcing large amounts of water immediately after waking is a perfect example. Overnight, the body naturally concentrates electrolytes, blood pressure is lower, and the nervous system is transitioning from a state of rest to alertness. After 60, the kidneys are slower to adjust, blood vessels are less elastic, and the brain's regulation of balance is more vulnerable. When a sudden volume of water is introduced, especially cold water, it can dilute sodium levels, exaggerate drops in blood pressure, and overwhelm systems that are still calibrating. The result is not refreshment, but dizziness, weakness, nausea, or a sense of mental fog that lingers into the morning. What's important to understand is that these reactions are not signs of poor health or lack of discipline. They are signals of a body asking for moderation. Many seniors blame themselves when they feel lightheaded or unsteady after doing what they believe is healthy. But biology does not respond to beliefs. It responds to load. And after 60, load matters more than intention. This is where modern wellness advice often fails older adults. Social media rewards certainty, extremes, and simple rules. Drink a full glass of water the moment you wake up sounds clean and powerful. But medicine, especially geriatric medicine, is rarely that simple. Health at this stage of life is not about pushing through discomfort. It's about minimizing unnecessary stress so the body can preserve strength, balance, and cognitive clarity. I've seen patients who drink water immediately upon waking and then struggle with morning fatigue, unsteadiness, or even falls. They don't connect the dots because no one has told them that hydration timing matters as much as hydration itself. The brain after 60 is exquisitely sensitive to sudden shifts in fluid and pressure. When we create abrupt changes, we activate stress responses instead of supporting stability. True professionalism in health means recognizing that aging requires refinement, not restriction. Smaller sips, warmer temperatures, a few moments of sitting upright, breathing, or light movement before large fluid intake. These are not signs of weakness. They are signs of wisdom. Longevity is not built on force. It is built on reducing avoidable strain. When we respect the body's changing needs, we stop fighting it and start working with it. And that shift from intensity to intelligence is where real health after 60 begins. One of the most overlooked realities of aging is that the brain does not wake up all at once, and after 60, that transition from sleep to alertness becomes slower, more deliberate, and far more sensitive to disruption. In clinical practice, I see how often people mistake this natural neurological shift for weakness or decline, when in truth it is simply a brain asking for a different kind of care. When we ignore that request and shock the system first thing in the morning, we activate stress pathways that quietly erode balance, mood, and cognitive resilience over time. During sleep, the nervous system is dominated by parasympathetic activity, the rest and restore state. Blood pressure is lower, heart rate is slower, and the brain is clearing metabolic waste. Upon waking, cortisol rises to help us become alert, blood vessels constrict to maintain circulation, and the brain recalibrates attention and balance. After 60, this orchestration still happens, but it happens more slowly. The margin for error becomes smaller. Sudden stimulation, whether it's large volumes of fluid, cold exposure, intense movement, or even emotional stress, can overwhelm a system that is still finding its footing. When seniors immediately force the body into action, the brain can misinterpret that surge as a threat. This triggers an exaggerated stress response. Heart rate fluctuations, palpitations, nausea, anxiety, or a sense of internal unease that has no obvious cause. Many people describe it as something feels off in the morning. What they are experiencing is not pathology, it is physiology reacting to overload. The vagus nerve, which plays a critical role in regulating heart rate, digestion, and blood pressure, becomes more sensitive with age. Rapid changes in posture, temperature, or internal pressure, like drinking a large amount of water too quickly, can overstimulate the system. Instead of promoting health, the body responds with lightheadedness, weakness, or even confusion. These are not random symptoms. They are protective reflexes. Modern health culture often celebrates intensity and immediacy. Wake up and optimize. Hack your biology. Push through. But the aging brain does not benefit from being hacked. It benefits from being respected. True neurological health after 60 comes from creating smooth transitions, not abrupt ones. When we allow the brain a few minutes to wake gently, by sitting upright, breathing deeply, allowing light into the eyes, or engaging in slow, intentional movement, we support stable blood flow and clearer cognition throughout the day. What's powerful here is how small the intervention is. We are not talking about radical change. We are talking about pacing, giving the nervous system time to shift gears. This reduces baseline stress hormones, improves balance, and lowers the risk of morning anxiety and falls. Over months and years, these micro-adjustments compound into meaningful protection for brain health. Aging well is not about doing more. It is about doing things at the right speed. When we honor the brain's natural rhythm instead of forcing it to perform on command, we preserve clarity, emotional regulation, and independence. That is not weakness. That is clinical wisdom applied to real life. One of the most subtle yet damaging misconceptions in modern health advice is the idea that hydration alone equals nourishment. This misunderstanding becomes especially costly after the age of 60, when the body's ability to regulate blood sugar, energy, and stress hormones is less forgiving. I often see highly motivated older adults doing what they believe is the healthiest thing possible, drinking water first thing in the morning, yet feeling inexplicably depleted, anxious, or mentally foggy within hours. This is not a failure of discipline. It is a mismatch between what the body needs and what it is being given. After an overnight fast, the brain wakes up with depleted glucose reserves. Glucose is not the enemy, it is the brain's primary fuel. As we age, insulin sensitivity, liver glycogen storage, and hormonal signaling all change. When we introduce only water into this already vulnerable state, we fail to provide the brain with the metabolic signal of safety it is seeking. Instead of stabilization, the nervous system experiences uncertainty. That uncertainty often expresses itself as fatigue, irritability, shakiness, or an urgent craving for quick carbohydrates later in the morning. Water alone also dilutes circulating electrolytes, particularly in seniors who may already be managing medications that affect fluid and salt balance. This dilution can worsen feelings of weakness and mental dullness. What's critical to understand is that the brain does not interpret hydration as nourishment. From a neurological perspective, water is neutral. It does not tell the brain that resources are available. Without that signal, stress hormones like cortisol remain elevated longer than necessary, keeping the body in a low-grade fight or flight state. This is why many people report that despite doing everything right, they feel anxious, drained, or unfocused by mid-morning. They may blame age, poor sleep, or lack of motivation, when in reality the issue is a missing piece of metabolic communication. The brain after 60 needs reassurance. It needs rhythm, predictability, and gentle fuel to function optimally. In our culture, we have become uncomfortable with the idea of balance. We oscillate between deprivation and excess, believing that stricter rules equal better health. But biology does not reward rigidity, it rewards responsiveness. A small amount of nourishment in the morning, whether through protein, healthy fats, or a balanced intake, can stabilize blood sugar and calm the nervous system far more effectively than water alone. This does not mean overeating or abandoning hydration. It means sequencing matters. When nourishment precedes or accompanies hydration, the body responds with steadier energy, improved mood, and clearer cognition. Over time, this reduces the cycle of cravings and crashes that so many older adults accept as normal aging. It is not normal, it is adaptive stress. True health after 60 is about sending the right signals at the right time. When we stop treating the body like a machine to be filled and start treating it like a system that communicates, everything changes. Energy becomes more stable, anxiety softens, and the morning sets a tone of balance rather than depletion. One of the most dangerous myths in modern health culture is the promise that one rule works for everyone, and this myth becomes increasingly harmful after the age of 60. As the body ages, individuality and physiology widens rather than narrows. Kidney function, cardiovascular regulation, hormone balance, medication interactions, and electrolyte needs begin to diverge dramatically from person to person. Yet many older adults are still following rigid health advice designed for a generic, younger body, assuming discipline will overcome biology. In clinical reality, discipline without personalization often leads to harm. I have worked with patients who are doing everything they've been told is right, yet their bodies are sending clear distress signals: fatigue, dizziness, swelling, palpitations, confusion. When we look closely, the issue is rarely effort, it is mismatch. A person taking blood pressure medication does not process fluids the same way as someone who is not. A person with early kidney changes cannot tolerate aggressive hydration like someone with optimal renal function. Someone managing heart conditions or diabetes operates under a completely different set of physiological constraints. Ignoring these differences in the name of simplicity is not health. It is negligence disguised as motivation. The brain is particularly sensitive to this mismatch. After 60, the systems that maintain equilibrium, blood pressure, sodium levels, glucose regulation, are less adaptable to sudden changes. One-size-fits-all rules create unnecessary swings that the brain must work harder to correct. Over time, this chronic correction becomes stress, and chronic stress accelerates cognitive decline, worsens anxiety, and increases the risk of falls and hospitalization. What makes this especially concerning is how persuasive oversimplified advice has become. Short videos, viral posts, and confident slogans bypass nuance and sell certainty. They reward extremes because extremes are memorable. But medicine has always been about context. True expertise is not loud, it is precise. It asks questions. It adapts. Intelligent health after 60 means learning to interpret your body's feedback rather than silencing it. Lightheadedness is not something to push through. Swelling is not something to ignore. Persistent fatigue is not laziness. These are data points. And when we respond to those signals with curiosity instead of shame, we begin to practice real self-care. This is where partnership with healthcare professionals becomes essential. Personalized guidance is not a luxury, it is a safeguard. A clinician who understands your medical history, medications, and daily rhythms can help tailor habits that support stability rather than disrupt it. This does not mean dependence, it means informed autonomy. Aging well is not about perfect adherence to rules, it is about responsiveness. When we abandon rigid formulas and replace them with individualized strategies, we reduce unnecessary strain on the brain and body. The result is not only better physical health, but greater confidence, clarity, and trust in ourselves. And that trust, earned through listening, is one of the most powerful forms of medicine we have. After the age of 60, the most powerful determinant of long-term health is not how intensely we pursue wellness, but how effectively we reduce unnecessary physiological stress. This idea runs counter to much of modern health culture, which celebrates optimization, discipline, and relentless self-improvement. Yet in clinical practice, the pattern is clear. Bodies age well not when they are pushed harder, but when excess is removed. Excess stimulation, excess rules, excess pressure. Longevity is built not through force, but through balance. As we age, the systems responsible for maintaining internal stability, the brain, the autonomic nervous system, hormonal regulation, and metabolic control, become less tolerant of extremes. The brain, in particular, shifts from a model of rapid adaptation to one of conservation. It becomes exquisitely sensitive to overload. When daily habits are rigid, rushed, or compulsive, they generate low-grade stress that accumulates silently. Over time, this stress erodes sleep quality, emotional regulation, immune resilience, and cognitive clarity. Many older adults believe that if a habit is healthy, more of it must be better. More hydration, more restriction, more stimulation, more control. But the brain does not interpret excess as safety. It interprets predictability and moderation as safety. When routines are extreme or inflexible, the nervous system remains on alert, scanning for imbalance. This chronic vigilance increases cortisol, worsens inflammation, and accelerates physical and cognitive fatigue. What is often overlooked is the emotional cost of intensity. Rigid health rules can create anxiety, guilt, and a constant sense of falling short. This psychological burden is not benign. Emotional stress has measurable physiological consequences, particularly after 60, when recovery from stress is slower. Health practices that create fear or urgency, even if they are well-intentioned, can undermine the very outcomes they promise. True longevity is supported by habits that are sustainable, calming, and adaptive. This might mean slowing down the morning routine instead of optimizing it, choosing consistency over novelty, allowing flexibility instead of enforcing perfection. These choices send a powerful signal to the brain: you are safe. And when the brain feels safe, the body functions more efficiently across every system. Independence, one of the most cherished aspects of aging well, is preserved through stability. Balance reduces falls. Calm improves decision-making. Reduced stress supports memory and emotional resilience. These are not abstract benefits. They are practical protections that compound over time. Aging gracefully is not about surrendering ambition. It is about refining it. The goal shifts from peak performance to durable function, from intensity to intelligence. When we replace compulsive health behaviors with mindful, balanced ones, we create a foundation that supports not just longer life, but better life. In the end, the most professional health strategy after 60 is learning when to do less. Less force, less urgency, less excess. And in that space, the body regains its natural capacity to heal, adapt, and sustain itself with dignity and strength.